Okay, Stefan is Joshua is not going to join us today. I don't know if Sage is coming. So most of the times he's about a few minutes late. So actually I would like to wait for another minute.
Hello there.
Hi, Travis.
How's it going?
Glad to have you back.
Yes. It's good to be back. Lots to catch up on. That's the problem with going away is you have to come back and catch up.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
Hi, Sebastian.
So,
I would say let's start with Rook, in the hope that Sage is going to join us in a few minutes. Um, okay.
sounds good.
Hi, everyone. So let's talk about Rook. Um, so the week before last week, I've tried to wrap up my Rook Python client pull request for Rook itself, and so we had a nice discussion last week about if this is actually the right way to do it. Would be nice to come to a conclusion today about what we want to do with it. Sebastian,
So,
you had a concern that you would like to have it as an external dependency, right?
Yes. I guess I wasn't a big fan of the idea of merging the whole library into Rook. I thought a better place would be to have it under the Rook organization as a separate repo. I guess it felt
yeah.
real
So the
weird
and the
to merge all of that library inside Rook.
yeah, since it's Python and all of everything else in Rook is going, that was your concern.
More that like I guess like if it's a library and it has its own purpose, then it should have its own repo, mostly.
Yeah. I guess I've gone back and forth myself on this question because it feels like if so clients, I mean, basically it's a client API for working with Rook CRDs, right?
Yeah.
And if it's in the repo, it's nice because it's just versioned exactly with however Rook changes. Um, but at the like we have a Golang client, that code generation is in the repo with the code. So it's yeah, whenever the code changes, the client changes with it. So that's the nice thing. So if it becomes a separate thing, then you just have to manage the difference. And I guess I was thinking if, well, the client code, I mean, the client code isn't actually running as part of Rook, obviously. Clients just need to pick it up and know what version it belongs to so they can work with Rook. Um, and it seemed to fall in the same pattern with the Golang client where we generate it with the code. And so that's why I was thinking, oh, let's just put it in the repo so it's all versioned together. Um, if we had other languages where we wanted to generate a client for, it would be, I don't know, if they're all separate from each language is a separate repo. Like one should argue, well, let's have the Golang client repo and the Python client repo and all the separate repos.
Yeah,
There
I
should be
guess
a lot
that's
to
the
manage.
issue. Like, the more clients you start adding, then they will all request that. Or maybe they won't because they want to have their own CI and they think they can be more productive if they have their own repos, so they can merge things more quickly. They don't need to wait for any person that has the right ownership to merge their code. Yeah, and I think like because it's an addition and Rook is already there, then if we have concerns maybe around which version supports which version of Rook, then perhaps the library should directly go with the latest supported version, or have different tags, even if it's the same code, so that you know that the version 1.2 of the library supports Rook version 1.2. So if we follow the same versioning schema, then you know it's always you only have to look at which Rook version you want to try on, and then you take the library version, and that's the same as the Rook version, so you don't actually have a big problem. Yeah, it's just that the coverage keeps increasing in Rook. We are adding storage providers too. The CI is quite struggling at this point as well. Very few people have the right access to the repo as well as the CI. And yeah, I guess it's probably, I think it's probably easier if we separate the concerns, and having your own repo for this will likely bring to you more flexibility and less issues, I guess. That was my idea, I guess.
I agree with Sebastian, and there is another additional same thing that I think that is important. That is probably the root client shouldn't change as with the same frequency as the root code, okay? Because the root client is only going to change if we introduce new properties in the CRDs. So probably this is something that is going to tend to be something that is not going to change very frequently, okay? So probably we do not need one version of the client libraries for each of the releases of Rook. Probably we only need only a new version when new CRDs or new CRDs properties are added. So I think that they are agree with Sebastian, and I think that this is another point to have into account.
And I think I'm not concerned about separating into a separate repo if we decide on that approach, because we're always making sure that any updates to the CRs are backward compatible, because we have to support the different versions as we're upgrading. Like new settings or just or settings that aren't recognized or just ignored by the operator, for example. So I think from that perspective, if the client API isn't in perfect sync with the client code, it shouldn't be a problem, because we have that philosophy around backward compatibility. At the same time, I guess, how can we ensure that when there is an update to the CR, that the appropriate update is made to the client code, right? Because you want the client code to be updated whenever a new property is added. So if it is a separate repo, how can
I think at this point it's just a matter of CI. I think it's just about the CI. Right. You can have like a recurrent job that runs against Rook master that will make codegen, and if there is any diff, we can comment it. I think it's more a matter of doing that little CI work in the external repo, and that's it.
Right, and we're suggesting to have like what would it be called, Rook-Python or whatever.
Yeah, root client Python or whatever.
Yeah,
Rook client, right?
client Python. Yeah.
Yeah, if we could, set up the CI for client Python, that should be fairly well. CI is never
Yeah,
straightforward as we want it to be.
I guess with Travis CI, you can do so many things right now, and this one is definitely one of the things you can do. I think it's maybe if you wanna build like a pip package, also you only need to fetch that repo. You don't have to pull the whole root repo just to get that little library too. So it's probably more straightforward for people to find if there is any library where to pick it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to revert that pull request back to the point where it was a dedicated repository on its own.
Did you already have a separate repository somewhere?
Yeah, it was originally it was a separate repository, and it was just including it as a dependency to Rook.
Right.
So Travis, can you create, if we all agree, I guess, to get a new repo under the Rook organization for that client?
Right. Yeah, we can create that.
And then you can give like Sebastian's ownership on that repo, and he can do whatever he wants to manage that library, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
One question. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just to. Yes, thank you, Travis. It's just to know if it's possible to use GitHub Actions in order to synchronize these both repositories. For example, checking if we are making changes in CRDs or properties in the CRD, and in this moment launch, for example, the automatic build in the Rook client repository. And obviously, in most of the cases, what we are going to have is an error, but we are going to have something to warn us that we need to fix and to make corrections in the Rook client if it is needed. Okay, with automatic generation, probably this is going to work, but it would be nice to have this step automated. Okay, I don't need if it's possible to use this kind of tools with a Rook repo.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the GitHub Actions, but I think what we're saying is the CI of this new Python repo would check and raise some error if it's out of date.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, then let's go with the dedicated repository.
And one more question about that. So if reverting back what the changes you need on the Rook side, so we wouldn't even go ahead.
For a start, I don't even need a pull request for Rook. It's just how do we make sure that the interface matches with Rook? But that's a thing that we can postpone.
Okay. Yeah, that was basically my question. What changes do we need on the Rook side? Maybe not.
Right now, my biggest concern is that I'm effectively blocked in doing any bigger manager / Rook module changes until we have solved this problem.
Okay. So you're blocked until we find a home for this. Exactly. Yeah. You can't make.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to sync up with Jared and Alexander as well, and I guess maybe process this a bit more myself, just to confirm that. Yeah, what it means to add a new Rook repo. We've never really added a new Rook repo besides the operator kit, which we don't have a dependency on anymore. So, okay, I'll take that action item.
Okay.
And get back to you in a couple days.
One additional question is about what is going to be the way to distribute this the root client Python. We are going to use, for example, pip in upstream.
Yeah, you can just pip install from the Rook repository. It's totally easy.
Okay, yes. And for downstream, I think that we should start to create RPMs or something like that.
That would be good, but it's at the moment it's optional because I'm just distributing it with Ceph itself.
And you are going to install this as a third-party dependency.
I'm just downloading the file and just putting the source code into the Ceph manager Rook package itself. So having that as a dedicated RPM would be great, but it's not necessary right now.
Okay, so just download the source with a certain tag, and this is all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just need a home for the repository.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else about that topic? Perfect. Anything else about Rook?
I'm catching up this week. Seb, do you want to bring up any PRs here or OSD changes?
Yeah, we merged
orchestration related, but go ahead.
Yeah, real quickly, I guess we merged the huge OSD refactor last week, which gets rid of the support for directories for legacy Rook OSDs as well as FileStore. So we only concentrate on BlueStore at this point. In the process, we also merged the initial code for raw mode support in Ceph volume when running OSDs on PVCs. Now I have a follow-up PR in Ceph volume to add support of DB and WAL to the raw mode so that we can also consume it when running on PVCs. And the idea is to extend the current PVC model where not only you request for block devices that will eventually become OSDs, but also metadata devices that could be used for WAL and DB. I guess we only do DB at this point because WAL needs a really super fast device anyways, and we won't likely get it in the cloud. So that PR is in flight in Ceph volume. Hopefully we can have it in this week and backported in Nautilus. I think the 14.2.7 batch for Ceph volume is going to be really interesting for Ceph because it brings supports for two partitions as well, something we really need in Rook, so that people can really do their transition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm checking with Jan, who's really responsive as always. So it's I'm glad to have him helping on those backports. And yeah, I think that's it. As a major highlight, I guess.
Yeah, with the partition support and Ceph volume, was that something? Remind me that was broken and we just found it wasn't working, or this was?
Yeah, it's basically there is one backport that is missing from Octopus in Nautilus, and okay. It's really something. It's not a big deal, but yeah.
So that's what will be included in 14.2.7 along with all the other changes. Cool.
Yes. So once we release, I have no idea when, but once we get 14.2.7, we will have all the code we need, even for raw mode when running on PVC. So it's good, really good.
Awesome. No more LBM.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah,
when running on PVC, at least.
Okay. Glad to hear. We have some progress there. So as soon as Rook Ceph client is merged, then I can actually have a look at improving the OSD creation for Rook from the dashboard part. Ceph ADM. So there is a drive group pair, high priority right now, and it's still blocked by QA issues. I'm going to have a look at it tomorrow again. That's really top priority because it's blocking basically everyone.
Do you
It's
know what
blocking
the
Jan.
problem with it is currently? Is there a recent test run or something to look at?
So my idea is to actually replicate how the OSDs are deployed locally on my in a virtual machine on my system, and then actually trying to replicate what is wrong, and then actually understanding how to fix it without always having to schedule German builds and totality runs.
You probably don't even need a VM because you can just create an LV that's backed by a raw file or something like that. Do that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
And then see how we need to adapt zapping of that disk, or what basically what needs to be done.
Yep.
That's my plan for tomorrow. Service refresh. Thanks.
Yeah, so I had this pull request. It changes a few things. So the service LS already returns immediately. So that's already there and hasn't aged. So this PR caches the SSH connections so that it reuses them. And then it makes it so that periodically it will, every time the serve loop comes around, which is normally every 10 minutes, it will do a check host on every host to make sure that their hosts are valid or whatever, and if not, it'll raise a warning. And then also it'll redo the service LS inventory, service inventory on every host also. So if you just don't do anything and you're watching service LS, you'll see that the last updated will go up to 10 minutes and it'll go back to 0 and up to 10 minutes, whatever. And that seems to work fine, except when I ran just that through QA, it failed because there are internal callers to get services that are run right after we deploy things that expect to see the thing that they just deployed. And so there's one more patch that also, after you deploy something, it just adds something to the cache, a dummy entry that has basic information about the container that should have just been created, but without actually having to refresh the inventory necessarily. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to run that through QA and just see. So that's what I've gotten so far. I think the larger goal here, is to, I think a couple things. I think we need to better define what the error handling should be when we have problems refreshing service state or running a command on a host. Like, should it just spit out an error on the command line? Should it raise a health alert? The periodic refresh raises a health alert if it fails to refresh services, I'm pretty sure.
The command line is basically delayed, right? It's if it fails, then it really has nothing to do with the command line of just pulling what's cached.
Right. Well, I'm thinking in general, like if I try to deploy a service and it has an error, then obviously we want to see that there, but should we also see it internally? I guess maybe not.
Maybe.
But yeah.
Maybe. So when a host tag fails, or when a host is not there in Kubernetes, then the status of that node is flagged as down or unavailable. I guess we need that too.
Yeah.
So
I think that's basically what this third patch adds.
And then we should enhance the dashboard to actually show that information.
Show that information, yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah. Yep. Agree. Well, I think basically this pull request is a good step forward, but I think there are still issues that we have to look at. One of the things that I was running into is just like, I want a log that I can look at to actually see what's happening. Just have some transparency into what the state of Ceph ADM is, so that if we're seeing errors or something's not refreshing or command blocks, like what's going on. And right now I'm tailing the manager log and grepping out Ceph ADM, but even that's super noisy because there's this like periodic refresh that's spewing out the completion state for knowing. But I'm wondering actually if we should run this into a channel, like one of the cluster log channels, like the audit log and a regular log, so that you can see it there. Then on the dashboard, for example, you'd be able to just flip to the Ceph ADM channel and you'd be able to see all the deployment activity. Or something, I don't know. One way or another, I think we need a better way to be able to watch what's happening, other than, figuring out what node and container the manager is running on and tailing that log.
If HostLS has a status field pretext, we could add at least some information about that host there, like the latest
when the last refresh was, how many services, whether it's in a healthy state or not. Yeah, agree. I was going to do that actually, and then the class that returns was some weird thing that I was like,
we have to. It needs to be a dedicated data structure, host or orchestrator host or something like that.
Yeah.
And we need that now, it seems.
All right, I can add a card. Are we still? Did you moved a whole bunch of stuff into the tracker, but is the Trello board still being used, or is it everything get moved in?
I've moved everything to tracker.
Okay.
There shouldn't be anything left in any Trello board that's not migrated to the tracker.
Okay, including the Ceph ADM one and
including the Ceph ADM one. Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and close this then. Okay, so I gotta find what I need then. Okay. Yeah, so that was basically it. I think we need to decide what to do with logging so we can monitor it, and then HostLS should show host state, fast refresh, etc. Type to return.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Any other topics? Last chance. Then see you either tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, just one thing real quick. It's just like FYI. We have been discussing this many times, and I guess I just witnessed it at some point. Ceph volume is like so fast now with Python 3. So pretty good.
Yay!
Yeah, like really,
awesome.
really fast. Yeah.
I was scared you were going to say the opposite. I do have one. No. Yeah.
I think it actually prepare takes like a third of the time it used to take. Really.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's
okay.
Cool. Yeah.
On that note, I wanted to bump that request. One of the slowest parts of getting the service inventory is for every container, it runs Ceph-v inside the container. And that's because the container doesn't have a label on it that tells you what Ceph version is installed inside of it. So really, really want the container to have a label on it.
Yeah. I have to get back to Dimitri for this one. But it is not easy.
Not trivial.
Yeah, definitely not.
But it seems like it's got to be something that we can do some hacky thing. There's some stage where we generate the Docker file before we build everything, right? So whatever
Yeah,
generates the Docker file should run the commands to figure out what what version it's going to be.
yeah. I guess we could, because we could pass the version. Yeah.
Do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, I'll talk to Dimitri about that. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay, then.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week.
Travis, this would help on Rook too, also, because you do this thing where you run a pod that just gets the Ceph version, right?
Yeah, it does Ceph-V. It's a job. Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
You get
thing.
the version.
Just like pull the image and look at the metadata, and you know.
That would be
That
really
I'm
nice.
Yeah, but you still have to pull the image, so I'm not sure if there is like much benefit.
That's true. How do you do that without launching a pod?
Yeah, I guess.
Because at least like it's like if you do Ceph-V because you pulled the image, then it's 100% true. But if you look at the labels, then we might
be wrong.
Made a mistake. Yeah, I guess the only good thing is that with Podman, we don't use Podman for this. So I'll have to see how we can do it. But with Podman, you can look at the metadata of an image even though you haven't pulled it yet. So then
really?
you get a So then you get a benefit.
I didn't know.
Definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, if we can get this, and then by using Podman, and you can simply just look it up. But for Rook, that's a different thing.
Okay. Is that something that Docker can do, or is that only a Podman thing?
It's only a Podman thing.
Okay. Oh well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Have a good week.
See you guys.
Bye.
So yeah.